Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today, as you can see, it's the night time because we have come out to do some star photography. Now, it's a beautifully clear sky and there's lots of stars. The moon is also out, and so we're going to be using the Canon 250D and the Canon 50mm 1.8 lens to see what photos we can get. Now, this is the first nighttime photography video we've made on this channel, and it's the first time I'm trying out astrophotography, so if this doesn't go well, I have an excuse. I'm still learning, and I hope you can learn from watching me learn. I'm going to walk you through all the steps I'm going to go through to take these photos, and I will show you the photos as we go along. Okay, so I've just taken this photo. As you can see, I had the aperture at 1.8. This is the lowest that this lens will allow, and it means we can get the most light into the camera. I have my ISO down at 100 because the less noise the better. Obviously it's very dark, and so we should be expecting a lot of noise, so I brought it right down to 100, and so hopefully there shouldn't be any noise. And then finally my shutter speed was 10 seconds. Now, while doing my research for astrophotography, apparently you should get 500 and divide it by your focal length. So 500 divided by 50 gives you 10. So that suggested I should use 10 seconds, and once I dialed it into my camera, 10 seconds looked pretty good. So I used a shutter speed of 10 seconds. This meant I had to be very careful, because if I knocked the camera stand or caused any shake, it would ruin the image, so I just sat here quietly, hardly breathed, and waited. Now, this photo isn't particularly dynamic. In this photo you can't see the Milky Way, and there's no dramatic, huge galaxies in the sky. It's just plain black with some stars, but it is beautiful, and it's something that, with your bare eye, sometimes you can't even see. Here's a fun fact, and this might just be me. Tell me what you think in the comments down below. But when I look up at the stars, initially I only see a few, but if you look up for 10 or more seconds, you often start seeing stars and they just start appearing. Is that just me? Tell me in the comments if you've seen that too, because every time I always look up and I'm like, no, there's no stars. And then I keep looking and they just start appearing. Okay, so I've just swapped lens. We've now got the Sigma 150 to 600mm lens on the camera. This will let us get a lot more zoom, so we should be able to get a closer in image of the stars, and I'm going to be doing moon photography with this lens. We should be able to zoom in on the moon and get some nice images with detail on the textures of the moon. So, you wouldn't believe how hard it was changing the camera lens and everything, just screwing these tiny screws on the tripod. My hands are so cold. Oh my gosh. So let's see what photographs we can get with the Sigma 150 to 600mm lens. Okay, so it's going for 30 seconds on this lens. Obviously it's a longer lens. I've got a higher aperture, which means I've got to have more time to let more light get into the lens. I didn't do the maths. 500 divided by 600, it should be lower than 1, but there'd be no light. We wouldn't be able to see any stars. So I'm just gonna see what it looks like and go from there. And I am totally wrong. Because of the slow shutter speed, we've seen the stars move. We got these huge streaks. Now look at this. What's interesting is if I left the camera for about 10 minutes, we'd probably get beautiful streaks. We'd almost get the orbit of the stars. So we might try that out, because that would actually be really cool. unfortunately it's not what we were going for just now. So I'm going to bring that shutter speed down to about 1 second, and then I guess I'll have to bring the ISO up to let more light into the lens. This is why you always trust the maths. If I'd have trusted the maths, I would have nailed it first time, but hey, I've only got myself to blame. So let's increase that shutter speed. So I'm now going to do a really long exposure to see if I can get those beautiful arcs of the stars as they orbit, and then we'll start doing some moon photography. Okay, so I set it at an ISO of 400, it's at 600mm, and it's on a setting called bulb shutter speed, which means it's just going to keep on shooting until I stop it to. So I'm honestly thinking if I leave it about 10 minutes, and then I come back, and hopefully we'll get those beautiful orbital strikes. Now, personally, the stars are such a calming thing to watch, and so while being very careful not to knock the camera, I'm going to put on some gloves to warm up my hands, which are way past the point of freezing, and I'm going to do a bit of stargazing myself. Okay, so I've just had to restart the photo. I had one attempt where I left it for 10 minutes and the streaks were huge, so I didn't need to leave it for 10 minutes, I just wasted time. And it was also very bright, because obviously for 10 minutes you're getting a lot of light into that camera. So I'll show you that image. Here it is. As you can see, it's really bright, and I'm going to darken it, so here you can see it's darkened and it still looks cool. And so it worked, and you get nice streaks going all the way off of the screen. I then tried it a second time, and the wind was an issue. Now, it is quite a windy night tonight, which isn't ideal for this, and so the wind would shake the lens. It's a big lens, and so a little bit of wind can shake it quite a lot. This caused the lines to have a few wiggles in them. Again, I'll show you, this is not an ideal photo. The wind ruined it. So, I'm now having another attempt. I'm going to leave it for about 2.5 minutes, which is just like the previous photo. I did it for 2.5. That gave a nice bit of streak. However, I've used the stabilization in the lens. I'm not sure if this is going to work. It may not, but we'll have a look, and maybe it will. If it works, then we should get some beautiful streaks. Again, there's a few wobbles in the lines, so that is the wind. Tonight is too windy to get a stabilized photo, so I'm just going to have to save that for another night, but we will be back and we will get a street photo of the stars, I promise you. But it's now time we move on to shooting the moon, and it's moved quite a lot since I first sat here, which is why I want to do it before it moves behind some trees. So I'm going to take this lens, I'm going to zoom it in, and we're going to take some beautiful photos of the moon. And I now have my camera set up and I'm taking some photos of the moon. So I'm zoomed right in on the moon. I'm using quite a high shutter speed actually, because the moon is very bright, just like the sun. Well, it's not like the sun because it's reflecting light from the sun instead of producing its own light, but it's very bright in the sky. And so I've got a shutter speed of 125 and I have an ISO of 100, so these images should be pretty sharp. I'm also using the lowest f-stop I can, which is 6.3. So, I'm going to take a few photos, but the thing with the moon is, it doesn't move around that much, unless you're going to set a huge time-lapse, which I'm not going to do because it's absolutely freezing, and my hands are cold as ice. They're literally gone, I can't click buttons hardly. So I'm just going to take a few photos of the moon, and I will show you what the moon looks like. and we managed to get some excellent photos of the stars and the moon. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned something. I certainly learnt a lot from taking these photos. It's my first time, and now I feel confident that I could go out and take some better photos. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when my next video is coming out, and I hope that I will see you in the next one.